Outstanding work of our change agents and Dr. Johnny Cruz Craig. We worked on different topics, not just the normal thing. You know, we worked on culturally relevant teaching, social and emotional learning, trauma-informed classrooms, and the whole child, just to name a few.
In terms of what you all are doing and what it means to us and what it means to everyone, education is a foundational key. I think it was George Washington Carver that said education is the key to freedom, which is the tie and the link between education and social action.
Delta pushed early on that it's not just matriculating through a scripted curriculum that may not teach needed life and adaptive skills. We have been pushing through our gyms and other programs that you need to focus on educating the whole person so that our next generation has the basic life skills to navigate and adapt in now an even more demanding and unrelenting world environment.
Good evening. Hello, everyone. We're so excited to be here. Day 4 of the Texas DTech Team's Virtual Teacher Symposium. Hi, I'm Lavetta Levels, and I bring greetings from Dallas, Texas. Welcome to tonight's Virtual Teacher Symposium hosted by Texas PAC's DTech Team. Texas PAC stands for Parents, Administrators, Community, Teachers, and Students, and it's a coalition of stakeholders committed to advocate for fair implementation of ESSA, which is the Every Student Succeeds Act, and quality, equitable education throughout the entire Lone Star State. Our focus is to ensure that all stakeholders are working together collectively to guarantee that education remains a civil right for all of those in society that are actively seeking knowledge and success. Whether this is your first time joining us or you've attended other sessions before, we want to thank you. Thank you so much. Your presence and participation means a lot as we continue to grow and learn. Where are you watching us from? I see people here from Dallas. I see Dr. Labata Taylor. Thank you. I see Councilman Casey Thomas. Hello, Dr. Craig. Thank you. We see a lot of you watching. Please post in the comments. Tell us where you're watching. We're excited to have you. Tag Yolanda, you're it.
Good evening. Good evening. Again, I'm bringing you greetings from the southwest side of H-Town. H-Town. Now I'm going to send you down 45 to Jennifer. Tag, you're it.
Hi, good evening. I'm Jennifer McMillan. It's so great to see all of y'all here tonight. Tag Keisha, you're it.
My mic is muted. Good evening, everyone. My name is Keisha Wiley, and I bring you greetings from Dallas, Texas, home of the Dallas Stars, who play in the Stanley Cup Finals tonight. All right, Tag Teresa, you are it.
Greetings and howdy from the northeast side of Houston, Texas, in the town of Crosby, Texas. So I just want to bring you greetings to tonight's symposium. So Tag Rachel, you're it.
All right, y'all. I bring you greetings from Houston, Texas. I'm on the east side. I have to represent all of my Houstonians because I know we have quite a bit of them here tonight, especially from my district, Sheldon ISD, because we have my awesome big boss on tonight. But I do want to introduce our first guest, who is from the State Board of Education. That is Miss Aicha Davis. We are so excited about her being here. So let me give you a few things about this awesome lady who helps to lead education here in our state. She was elected to the Texas State Board of Education on November 6, 2018. Her district, District 13, covers both Dallas and Tarrant counties. She served as a STEM educator and advocate for over a decade. She began teaching science and engineering in Baton Rouge after Hurricane Katrina to improve outcomes for displaced children. There, she coached the nationally ranked robotics team and forged an engineering pipeline with Southern University. Shout out HBCUs. Okay. She continued to teach advanced sciences in Texas, focusing on STEM opportunities for children of color and English language learners. Aicha later became a powerful advocate, testifying before the Texas State Legislature on STEM success in public schools and influencing science curriculum with the State Board of Education. During her freshman term, she successfully led the effort for statewide adoption of African American studies. She is completing a PhD in education leadership and policy from the University of North Texas, focusing on increasing educational opportunities for all students. We are beyond delighted to have you here, Miss Aicha Davis. I can't wait to hear what you're going to share with us.
Awesome. Thank you so much for having me. I'm truly excited to be here. And I have some really good action items because I know I'm in front of some folks who really want to get things done. So I really want to thank you for even having this conversation and giving a platform to be able to reach out with some ideas on how we can influence Texas education policy. So thank you all so much for having me. So I want to use my time to talk about some action items because we have some events coming up really soon that can really influence some of the opportunities and resources that we have for our students. And that is a legislative session. So we definitely have to make sure that we are down there and making our voice heard. So we have representation and we make sure that our students get exactly what they need to be successful. So I want to talk to you about some things that we can definitely start to do to make sure that we pave a good pathway and that we're prepared for that. So the first thing we have to do is make sure that our seniors are registered to vote. Now, there is a law in Texas where every single high school has to offer voter registration at least twice a year. Now, you know, the deadline for voter registration is coming up very soon. So this has to happen very quickly. If you are a deputized registrar, then partner with your school districts and your high schools to make sure that you are there to register those seniors or eligible juniors to vote. Remember, it is a state law that they have some sort of voter registration at the school. So definitely make sure that that is happening. Also, if you can, make sure that some of those staff members are registered and they can get this done. So that means getting active, talking to librarians, teachers, staff, anyone who can be deputized and who can get this done, who has those relationships already at the school to make sure that this always goes on. Now that we are in a virtual setting, it'll have to be a little innovative how to work. So we have some different folks who have some great ideas like drive-through registration for seniors, or partnering with school districts maybe to give students some resources about college, some information about the census and their voter registration information. So it's so important that we are connecting with our schools to make sure we get the opportunity for every single one of our students, especially the students in our communities and neighborhoods. We need to make sure they're registered to vote. So that's first and foremost. Second of all, we have a very, very important piece of legislation that is coming up very quickly in January called the Crown Act. And that may sound familiar because it has passed in other states. And this piece of legislation says you cannot discriminate because of someone's natural hairstyle. Well, that's so important in education because we know we've had several students this year alone who have been suspended because of their natural hair. We want to make sure that all of our students are protected, and this is a perfect opportunity. Now, the Crown Act was introduced by Representative Retta Bowers. So she's here in the Dallas area. She's an amazing woman and also a member of Delta Sigma Theta. And she is championing that to make sure that hairstyles are protected both in the workplace and in the school. So it's definitely going to take our advocacy and our voice down there in Austin to make sure that that bill successfully passes along. So exactly what do? Reach out to Representative Bowers and let her know that you definitely have her support, and build a strategy where you can get down there to Austin and actively testify about why it's so important for students to be able to have that freedom of expression through their hairstyle. Go down there and show your own natural hair and your own locks and let them know how you're professional and successful, regardless of what your hair chooses to look like. So it's so important that that voice is down there in Austin, and that bill will be coming up for Texas. Now, one more important thing about the Crown Act, it's only passed in very liberal states. Texas will be the first opportunity to see how something like this will pass in a conservative state. So it's our opportunity to really show, even though right now we're considered the minority, we have a voice that's powerful and can influence policy that will really protect all students in Texas public schools. And the last thing I want to talk about a little bit more is African American studies. So one of my first priorities before, as I got on the board, was making sure that we had a course that reflected how dynamic we've been to America as a whole. And so what better way through an African American studies course? So I teamed up with different researchers and community leaders and educators from all across Texas and the country to build a curriculum that talks about those figures that we know, but a lot of hidden figures that we had to dig deep to find. And now that we have that curriculum finally adopted on April 17th, 2020, it's time for all school districts to make sure they're offering it to our students. So reach out to your local school districts. Let them know that African American Studies has been adopted statewide in Texas and that it is available for all public schools that want to offer it to their students. We also have some dynamic universities and organizations who are teaming up to make sure that those educators have primary resources and they can give an authentic experience. What I want from that course is students to get rich information, but I also want them to feel empowered so that they leave that course wanting more information about themselves, about how they can contribute to society and make it even better than what it is for the next generation. So African American Studies is a course that is available. We just have to make sure that all school districts are adopting it, and our teachers need get exactly what they need to be able to teach that course with fidelity. Now, I've gotten a lot of questions about STAR testing. And what will STAR testing look like? I do want to start this conversation by saying, when we think about accountability exams and we think about this year and what's going on with virtual learning and COVID, we have to definitely talk about what's going on in African-American communities, because we've already been disproportionately affected by educational policy. And all of the studies have shown that a lot of the COVID slide has happened even worse to the students in our communities. So when we talk about having accountability exams, and we're talking about holding schools, to responsibility, where if those students aren't successful, those schools can get some serious penalties. We have to really think about what those tests are measuring and if that's what's best for our students, because remember, they're supposed to be the priority in all that we do. So this is the time for all of our educators and all of our parents to actively get with our legislators. Let them know what's best for our students. If accountability exams and that much weight is not going to be good, it's going to have negative, harmful effects to our school, we have to make sure that some sort of emergency policies are put forth in place so that our schools don't get those negative penalties. Remember, legislative session is from January and it's over in May, unless we go in a special session in June. That'll be around the time school is ending. So it is time to still affect our STAR scores, our accountability ratings, and all of the decisions that are made by TEA and the State Board of Education. We have to just make sure that we are down there and we're voicing what needs to happen for our communities, and that we really are following up to make sure those decisions are being made. And I have a lot of people that ask, hey, Aicha, I was a teacher being involved in policy. How did I get involved? As women, as Black women, we have to make sure that we're mentoring those who are coming up behind us so that they can continue this advocacy. And as I was starting my doctorate program, I was very fortunate enough to have a mentor who taught me the importance of knowing all about education policy. And one of my very first assignments was giving me our board book with every single policy that our district offered and telling me to read it and know it. And I did. And that helped me to understand the strong influence that policy truly has on everything we're able to do as educators. So know that policy, mentor folks. And Lavetta Levels, thank you so much for teaching me the importance of understanding policy so that I can have that influence and change for the students in Texas public schools. So thank you so much, and I look forward to answering questions a little bit later.
Oh my God, this was awesome. Thank you so much. As an educator, as an administrator in Texas, to hear that, I tell people this all the time, none of my degrees are in education. My degrees are in political science and education, in policy and public administration. So when I hear people talk about legislation, it gets me all giddy. The nerd in me comes out. So thank you so much. And we are truly excited about you being able to answer questions for everybody who is here tonight. So I'm going to turn it over to Sharisa so she can introduce our next awesome guest.
Well, I would like to say, a proud UNT alum right here. So I love that you're getting your doctorate from UNT. Go Eagles. I love that, Aicha, that you talked about mentoring and, paving the way and continuing the advocacy and about making the kids feel empowered. And, that's making them take ownership into their own education and to be a living breath of their own. So I would like to now introduce the next guest. So we have Miss Paula Patterson, my big sister and yours. So Paula Patterson is a native Texan and a former principal in the Houston area. She served 3 elementary schools in administration for 10 years. She is currently serving the education world as the Deputy Superintendent of Academics in Sheldon ISD, a 6A school district on the east side of Houston. She is a proud graduate of Southwest Texas State, currently known as Texas State University, where she earned a bachelor's degree in mass communication with a concentration in broadcasting. God knew she had a gift to be a change agent in education. She pursued her master's of educational leadership at the University of Houston Clear Lake and taught 1st and 3rd grade before moving to administration. She is married with 2 sons, and her daily goal is to be the living example of Proverbs 31 woman. Please help me welcome our panelist guest, Ms. Paula Patterson.
Good evening. Thank you guys so much for having me. I'm going to say this over and over. I love talking shop. I love talking education. I absolutely love what I do. On tonight, I'm going to share a little information with you on accountability. So we're going to talk accountability on the district level. Aicha did a great job of speaking about accountability on the state level. So we know where we started. We started last year. We ended the 1920 school year missing 9 weeks of instruction. And then we began this year, the 2021 school year, online. So neither one of those things has ever happened in the history of education. So of course, we are sitting back wondering, what does that mean for accountability? This is all new to us. Well, the word that we have been given so far is that accountability will be in place for the 2021 school year. So the short answer is, it is back. So what should we do? We shall lead like our hair is on fire and teach like your hair is on fire. But as you're leading and teaching like your hair is on fire, make sure you're doing that with calmness. I know that that didn't go together, right? Fire and calmness. But the leading and teaching like your hair is on fire is with a sense of urgency. We don't have a lot of time to waste this year. And sometimes in education, we can waste time sometimes, and we don't have time for that this year. But as we have the sense of urgency, we also must have the sense of calmness. The key to accountability, the number one key is student growth. What we must focus on is student growth. And I'm sure you guys have heard this. We can no longer look at passing. I don't even like when we say pass star. There is no passing. There are 3 different levels. And really the goal is for students to grow. Are your students growing? So we need to look at student growth. Then we need to look at meets and masters. How many of our students especially are meeting that master's level, but also looking at the meets level? And then for the high school, we need to make sure we pay close attention to CCMR, college, career, and military readiness. So these are the 3 key areas when it comes to accountability, the 3 areas you must focus on for the year. So the first thing we'll think about for this year is, where are our students? We can't really meet their needs unless we know where they're starting, right? And remember, we started with missing 9 weeks of instruction last year. And so there might be some gaps. So we have to identify the student academic needs. And the way we're choosing to do that in our district is we're using mini assessments before each unit. We want to know before Unit 1, we know what foundational skills are necessary to learn this information. So we're going to give a mini assessment to see if you have those foundational skills. When we identify the need, then we'll go to step 2, which is, how do we meet that need? So once we identify what gaps we may have in that learning, then we plan our instruction accordingly. And we all know that that's called data-driven instruction. The last question, which is probably on the mind of every single educator and parent and student, how do we prepare students for STAR? We really will be preparing students for the worst case scenario, and I'll talk about that a little later. Worst case scenario is online assessments. For the high school and CCMR, we're really focusing on, that's really a tracking system. So CCMR, it's set up, the process and the policy is set up to where you get points for students who are college and career military ready. And there are different areas where you can achieve that point. And so really what's most important is having a solid tracking system, keeping up with all of your high school students from the time they become 9th graders until the time they graduate. Do they have that point? If they have not earned the point, then what's an alternative way for them to earn the point? Because there are several ways for them to earn it. So it's important to track so that you know who has earned the point. And then for those who haven't, come up with a plan to make sure they earn the point. And for CCMR, that's huge. It's a large percentage that goes into the accountability for high school. And really, at the end of the day, guys, it is all about staying positive. I know earlier I said lead and teach like your hair is on fire because we need to have urgency. But at the end of the day, we must have a positive attitude. I tell my people all the time, we are in a pandemic. We're in a pandemic. COVID is real. We've never been in this situation before, but in order for us to really thrive, we must stay positive and make sure we are headed in the right path and making sure that we can get to where we're going. And a little saying that I say in my district is, we can do this. And when you have a positive attitude and you know that you can do it, then you know you are doing your very best, and we really can be successful during this pandemic crazy time that we're in right now. That concludes my presentation. Again, thank you so much for having me. Like I said earlier, I love talking shop. I love talking education. And so thank you again for giving me the platform to do so.
Thank you, Ms. Patterson, for bringing that information from a district level. And so now that Rachel and Ms. Aicha is back on the stage, we are going to move into our next session.
All right, we like to call this session Texas Table Talk because we do everything big in Texas, and we definitely want people to know to bring their seat to the table. We want everybody to have a seat at the table. In order for you to have that, you have to be armed with knowledge, right? And that is what we are getting from these wonderful, awesome, dynamic ladies tonight. So we are going to just have a discussion about some of the things that you all have done in your career, some of the things you're doing in your district. And we just want to empower all of the people that are following us tonight and looking on to this so that they have that information to be able to go and be change agents and advocates themselves. So we'll start off with our first question. CJ, you want to go with this one?
Yes. What is the exact role of the State Board of Education?
Like, I get this all the time. So we have 3 responsibilities that we really, really have to dictate. The first one are things that are with our Committee on Instruction. And that is, we have to figure out all the curriculum that students are going to be required to know in order to graduate from Texas public schools. So this is also where you have the opportunity to introduce new and innovative courses, where you get to review courses that exist, and where you get to look at some of those textbooks that Texas will be using for their adoptions. We also have our Committee on School Initiatives, which looks at things like teacher certifications and charter school adoptions. And we just completed charter school adoptions for this year a couple of weeks ago. Lastly, we manage the Permanent School Fund. It's a $43 billion endowment that's used to fund schools, but it's used to fund schools of tomorrow as well. So a lot of that money goes untapped, but it is built up from investment. So that's an opportunity for folks who are involved in business to start to get some of those contracts. Now, I do want to share that our Permanent School Fund does not have any contracts with any Black-owned businesses, and they have never had any contracts with any Black woman-owned businesses. So anyone who is interested in investments in large portfolios and things like that, we do have an agency that does directly have those contract and subcontract opportunities. So for more information about that, I would definitely love to share.
Awesome. Thank you. All right. So, Ms. Patterson, how was accountability affected last year here in Texas?
So last year in Texas, probably around, I don't know, April, May-ish. If you had been in Texas, you probably heard a whole lot of hallelujahs being screamed from educators. And that would be when they made the announcement that there would be no accountability for this year. So the way it was affected was this last year was we weren't able to give the STAR test. Because remember, COVID hit basically spring break, so in March. And after that, kids never returned to the building. And so COVID really hit everyone pretty badly. And no one, we hadn't planned for a pandemic. And so we were all pretty much, what do you do? And the state realized, we can't give the STAR test because no one's in school. And so, our accountability is, most of it is tied to the STAR assessment. So for last year, we kind of got a reprieve. And so when you look at the taper reports for campuses for last year, you'll see a little COVID-19 waiver, and it's a lot like what they gave for Harvey. So districts that were hard hit for Harvey didn't have accountability that year. And if you pull up their reports for the year, for the Harvey year, it will say Harvey waiver. So every district in the state of Texas received a waiver for STAR for last year.
So I was kind of conflicted. I'm gonna be honest. I know most of us were kind of in Sheldon because we knew what we were doing to grow our kids. So part of me was hallelujah. The other part was like, man, look at the work we put in. I know we would have had our kids do well. So I totally get that. But accountability this year is, we'll see what that looks like, right? Okay.
All righty. So, Ms. Aicha, what is the process for the adoption of the statewide African American Studies course?
So we worked on it a little over 2 years, and it was anchored in Dallas ISD. Dallas has a phenomenal racial equity office. At that time, it was led by Jamila Thomas. And we were able to work with a lot of teachers. They were able to sponsor a lot of the work to make sure that the community was really involved as well. We got to make sure that that course was built up, and we had students who were enrolled in the course. So when it came before the state from Dallas ISD, a busload of those students came and testified about why that course was so important to them. And that had a lot to do with why we as a conservative board were able to pass African American studies. And that is something that nobody thought would ever happen in the state of Texas. So a lot of that work came from Dallas ISD, just like Mexican American Studies, which was adopted 2 years prior, came from Houston ISD. So we have a lot of opportunity to introduce a lot of innovative courses when we work together, come together as a community, and give our students an opportunity to learn something new.
I think that's a great opportunity for our kids, especially with the majority of the state being minority, especially in the Houston area, where most districts, especially on the east side, are 70 to 80% Hispanic. So I think a lot of kids are going to be looking forward to those courses.
I love that. Of course, me being a history buff, like, let's bring all of these courses in, right? So our kids can see themselves and understand the impact of their cultures on the United States. It's amazing. All right. So Ms. Patterson, what are our accountability requirements for this year? And will STAR be administered this year? And if so, how are we going to do it?
The short, sweet, simple answer is yeah, it'll be administered. But to go into it a little more, the accountability requirements for this year is business as usual. We're going back to the standards that the state has set. And so we need to work accordingly. That's going back to the hair on fire. Like, we're going back to normal, even though we're not normal. So we've got to figure it out. All campuses and districts will earn a rating based mainly on STAR scores and CCMR for high school. Will STAR be administered this year? Yes, it will be. And I mentioned it earlier, and I don't think I went into it like I wanted to. I feel like we need to prepare for the worst case scenario. What is the worst case scenario? The worst case scenario is if we have some or all students at home and they have to take STAR online. College Board tried this with some of their college entrance assessments, and you have a proctor with the students, like we're doing this Teams or Zoom or whatever platform you use, and you're proctoring, watching students take a test. I think that's worst case scenario. So how do I prepare my students for worst case scenario? In our district, we're giving assessments online. So your unit assessment, your 9-week assessment, your mock assessment needs to be online. We don't need to practice pencil paper. We know how to do that. But we do need to give them more opportunities, especially our Title I districts where typically, you know, our technology is not really up to speed. And so at this point this year, we've got to make sure our students are comfortable and know the test taking strategies of taking a test online. And so for me, it's preparing for worst case scenario as if all of the students were taking the test online.
Okay, well, worst case scenario, that is going to be quite interesting, but I know that we're up for the task to make sure that our kids are prepared. I think that all districts are navigating this digital platform right now so that we can prepare our kids, because the kids are our primary goal, right? Their success is our primary goal.
Absolutely.
Awesome. Thank you.
So Ms. Aicha, how can we get involved to ensure representation during course revisions?
Hey, every time a course comes up for revision, TEA forms committees of educators and community members that gives input. And this input is given to the State Board of Education as recommendations for things to vote on when those course revisions do come up for a vote. Now, if there are no Black women on there, I guarantee you will not see any Black women who will come up as figures for those courses. And science is a prime example of that. Right now, we are going through a science adoption here in Texas, and we haven't gone through a science adoption in over a decade. So this is an opportunity to really shape and form the science that will be offered in all Texas public schools. But there is not one Black woman that students are required to learn about that was a scientist, an engineer, someone who has come up with any sort of innovative anything that has contributed to our scientific society. None. So we have to make sure that we are on each and every committee so that we can put those pieces into the TEKS that goes to our public schools. Now, 2023, it sounds like it's a long ways away, but 2023, you have to keep that on your calendar. That is when history will come back up for revision. That'll be our only opportunity within the next 2 decades to make sure that we have Black history infused within every single history course that is offered in Texas public schools. So we have to make sure you are applying for those curriculum committees as soon as they come up and getting in touch with your state board member to let them know that you have applied and that your application is sitting in the queue. We are able to select our community members that apply from our areas. So that's why that is so important. Like I said, we have science coming up now. We'll do a final vote in November. We also have health and physical education. Math will be coming up. And then in 2023 is history. Now, one other thing that we can do right now to make sure we have a little African-American history infused in every single course, Congresswoman Marcia Fudge from Ohio, she is dynamic and powerful. She has introduced the Black History is American History Act. And if that bill passes through Congress, it'll make sure that there is Black history in every single course that is offered across the country that deals with history. And it makes sure that the NAEP exam contains questions about Black history specifically. And it gives a little money to the Smithsonian African American Museum so that they can offer resources to states so they can begin this initiative if they don't have a Dallas ISD with a racial equity office that wants to start this up. So there's a lot of different ways we can get involved, but we just have to make sure we're advocating and we're staying up with the policy so that we can help things move forward.
Thank you.
That is awesome. You're speaking my love language when you talk history. So I definitely think that we have to know that we can get on those committees, right? We have to know that we are able to affect change through having a seat at the table. So in order for us to get that seat at the table, we have to know that avenue to get there. So thank you so much for sharing that with us. All right, Ms. Patterson. So our next question, we are definitely wanting to know more about accountability. So our next question for you will be, how can schools, the global pandemic and quarantine threw educators into a virtual learning setting immediately. We know this. So How was your district, my district, our district, able to make that transition?
So, as I mentioned earlier, it was a jolt to all of us. You know, we're on spring break and it was the end of spring break, and now we're getting phone calls saying, I don't think we're going to go back to school next week, and I think we need to find a way to teach them from home. So then it was, oh my, okay, let's go after it. And it literally, I think we had a week. I think we really had a week to put it together. And so it sounds like a monumental task, and it was. But when I taught first grade, I had a teacher who gave us training, and actually was a reading coach. And she said, how do you figure out a word? We were teaching phonics. How do you figure out, a big word? You eat it one chunk at a time, right? Kind of like, how do you eat an elephant? One chunk at a time. And so that's really the philosophy we took. So yes, this is a huge task. However, let's chunk it up. And so we chunked it by task force. So we created task force committees for it ended up being every department in the district, because every department was affected in some way. And so we created task force committees. We made sure there was representation from district leaders to campus leaders, principals and assistant principals, campus curriculum coaches, district coaches, and also teachers. As much as I would have wanted to have everyone in the district part of the committees, we know we couldn't get anything done with thousands of people, right? Or hundreds of people. And so, but we could represent each position. And so we had our task force committees. We met as a big task force. We talked about the things that were going on. Every time we met, of course, there were updates, because things changed all the time. So there were updates, and now here's the update. Now let's go to work figuring it out. And so we met in task force committee meetings. Once we met as a whole group, the committees went and met with their subgroups, and then they came back and leaders shared out. And it truly was a team effort. It truly was a team effort. Everyone in the district was working together. And I really believe the task force, of course, it was created to figure out what to do, but it was far reaching. The product of it, I think it gave people trust in us. I think it gave people respect in us, as in the leadership, that you guys, made us part of the decision making. And so, that's how we, galvanized, and it really and truly was a team effort. And that's how we did it.
I would like to comment. I think that's a great way of ownership, because I know I'm not part of Sheldon ISD, but I was following Sheldon ISD because y'all were innovative. Y'all had town halls. You were keeping, even though you had your small groups going on inside the district, you were still keeping your parents and the public aware of what was going on. And I thought that was a really basically transparency. So everybody knew what was going on. So everybody had buy-in to make sure it was successful.
And really, in times like this, communication is key. Because where there's not communication, then we just make up stuff. And that's when things get all muddy. So communication is key. And that's with every stakeholder, your teachers, your parents, everybody. And so, that's really where we were coming from, understanding that everyone has to understand what is going on.
Yes, ma'am. I totally agree. We definitely had all the communication. Some of it we probably didn't want, because we were like, wait, they're updating it again. So, but we definitely felt like we were a part. So that was awesome.
So one of our questions from the viewer is asking, where are we with the Crown Act?
So the Crown Act has been written. It uses a lot of the same language as has been introduced in other states. It will definitely need to be tailored as it's introduced and as it moves through the House and then to the Senate, and then hopefully onto the governor's table. We have to make sure that that education component is also included. So that's going to require us to make sure that we are being very, very vocal about amendments, friendly amendments, to make the bill even stronger and to make sure that it does protect our students. So right now, the bill has been it has been authored. we're at a point right now where a lot of our legislators are authoring their bills, getting them together so that when January comes, they can start moving very, very quickly. If you do want to start influencing some of those bills as they are being written, literally right now is the time to be reaching out to those legislators. So with the Crown Act, understanding all of those amendments, how you definitely have to have specific language so that school boards know exactly what their responsibilities are in protecting students and not discriminating against them. For that bill in particular, we'll need to wait until it's introduced, and then we'll know the perfect way to introduce those amendments into the bill. And I do want to say that was Dr. Kimberly McLeod, and I do want to give her a definite shout out. She is a Black woman who is dean of a college of education and human services at Texas A&M University in Commerce. And like I said, one of the very few Black women to serve as a dean, not just in Texas, but across the country. So she's a phenomenal woman. And thank you for tuning in tonight.
Now, I can't say go Aggies because my cousin doesn't play there anymore. I don't have to root for them anymore, but we definitely support her in her work that she's doing there. And we love the fact that she is making those moves for our kids at the higher education level. All right. So, Ms. Patterson, we know that professional development for our teachers during this virtual setting has been super crucial, because when you think about, not only do I have to move into this pandemic pivot, but I also have to figure out how to navigate through a digital platform. So what professional development did your district provide and training provide to your teachers to be prepared for the virtual platform and for virtual instruction?
So again, even with professional development, we learned a lot from the spring. We learned a lot. And I say all the time, we had a week to put our plan together and we did the best we could, but we learned a lot of what we don't want to do again, right? And so we knew from the very beginning, we had to provide professional development to the teachers because this is a whole new world. And it's almost like every educator, we're all going through our year one all over again, along with the true first year teachers. And so what we did, there were so many different professional development sessions that were offered. I won't even try to remember them all because there were so many, but we probably had about 100 hours of professional development that were offered throughout the summer. We even had a campus do their own professional development, which was so creative. They called it Appy Hour, not happy because we're educators, but Appy Hour. And that was phenomenal. And so who do teachers learn best from? Each other. And so it just really did my heart good to see a campus decide we're going to do training. It was 1 hour on a Friday at 5 o'clock. Number one, it's in the summer. What teacher in the summer on a Friday at 5 o'clock wants to be taking, professional development? But they were on and they were engaged. And I think the night I went on, there were like 100 teachers on. And so really it took off. We also provided, and this is our second year of doing this, and it was really a way to incentivize learning in the summer, what we call PD that pays. So we had certain PD sessions. If you take the course, and then we always had a product, like you had to show us that you've mastered this topic, and then we paid you. We paid you to learn. And so we did that this year. This was year 2, and it was a huge success. We also had our innovative programs department came up with what they called Camp Awesome. And they work mostly with our STEM program in the district, but they're our techies, like they know instructional technology. And so they really, and their role really isn't instructional technology, but they have that skill set. So again, there we go with the team. They jumped in and they provided so much to us because they had that expertise. And so their training, there was no money attached to it. It was in the summer still, and I think it was if I remember correctly, it was the week before we came back. So your last week of summer vacation, and they had hundreds of people logged in learning. Now they had great prizes, but there was no money and there's no guarantee you're going to get the prizes, right? So I can go on and on about the PD. There is one more thing I did want to mention. We had our our online virtual program is called Sheldon On Demand. So we did Sheldon On Demand University, and there were certain courses that every teacher had to take to graduate, but really it's the foundational programs that they need to know to teach virtually. We also did parent PD to teach our parents. There's so much. I can go on and on, but I know we have a time limit.
No, I'm definitely just super excited about what we were able to do. And not just that, and I know you were going to say this, I know we're running out of time, but we didn't just take care of our teachers and our students, but I know you were going to say, like, we took care of our kids, their basic needs. Do you want to talk about that just for a minute?
So we continued a couple of things we did. We continued to feed throughout the summer, starting in March and throughout the summer, because we know, we educators know that we're also a social agency. We know that we provide things to our kids that they don't get at home. And so we continue to feed them. It even got to a point where you didn't need to tell us what school you were at. You didn't need to tell us your name. You need food, come get food. So we fed them. And we provided the laptops and hotspots, whatever they need to be successful. So as I see on social media a lot, we dealt with Maslow. So we're making sure you're getting fed, and then we move to the education, right? It has to be in the right order. So we make sure you're fed and you have your basic needs. And now we got to teach you, because when we get out of the pandemic, we still need you to be educated, and we need you to still be able to break those cycles that may be going on in your community and in your family. And so really we've tried to meet all needs of our students.
Thank you so much. That is awesome.
All right, so we have a question from the audience. It says, how were you able to pass Black history in such a conservative state of Texas? Because, you know, we are the United States of Texas. We are able to involve, or were you able to involve the community and students?
Oh, definitely. Well, first of all, the reason why we were able to have success was because looking at policy pipelines and understanding how to make things actually work. This has been something that's been attempted for decades. You know, the NAACP has led lots of different efforts for African American studies in Texas. They've gone through the legislature. That was met with a lot of resistance. You know, asking TEA to develop a course was met with resistance. So we looked and really studied what happened with Mexican American studies. We saw how they had success in that Houston course that was then given to the state as an option for an innovative course, how it went through that process. And I knew that was something that African American studies could go through as well. But I wanted to make sure that this course was so dynamic that you couldn't say no. So I wanted to make sure that we had all kinds of facts, and we involved as many different folks as possible. And like I said, the most powerful thing that happened during that course adoption was those students coming from Dallas ISD. They made all of the difference. They were so strong, and they advocated for that course to be adopted statewide. And there was no way any of my colleagues could say no to an opportunity that students are telling us is so great for them. So that had a lot to do with why that course was so successful. And I hope that other states try to do the same thing.
All right, awesome. Thank you so much. Ladies, just the amount of knowledge and wisdom that you all gave us tonight, I just feel so blessed to have been able to have you both here sharing that with our entire audience, but also with all of us, so that we can be empowered to continue to be advocates. And so we know the knowledge that we need in order to be better educators, right? So we can continue to advocate for our students who are our primary stakeholders. So thank you so much. And we're going to bring on our fellow change agent, Dr. Jennifer McMillan. She has something for you.
Wow, thank you so much. That was an amazing presentation from both of y'all, and we just love the discussion as well. So we do have a little something for you. So for Miss Aicha Davis, we have a certificate for you to thank you for participating in our virtual Education for All Symposium. And this will be sent to you so that you can print it out and frame it. And for Miss Paula Patterson as well, we have a certificate for you to thank you for participating in our virtual Education for All Symposium. So thank you all both so much. This is absolutely amazing, and we all learned so much. And our audience was super engaged. They had so many great questions and comments. So thank you again. And now I am going to bring up Miss Keishla Wiley. You're muted.
Muted. Dang, why can't I get that one, y'all? Thank you all so much for sharing. We will see you all backstage, but thank you guys for sharing this wealth of information. One of my assistant principals texted me during the session, and she was like, happy hour. Yes, we're going to do that on our campus. So thank you guys so much. Thank you. Thank you. All right. So guys, now it is time. It's time to spin the wheel. You guys, we are asking you to register for this event. If you have not registered, be sure to register for this event. The registration link is right there for you. Also, you can connect with us. You can connect with DTech Tag. That's not what I wanted to show you. I wanted to show you the survey. We also want you guys to fill out the survey. So both of these links will also be available in the comment section. Grab the registration link, grab the survey link, share with us your feedback on the survey, and register because we still have one more night. What happens when you register or you provide feedback? Well, your name goes into a nightly drawing for a Visa gift card. And tonight we're going to give away 2 Visa gift cards. So let's get to spinning that wheel. These individuals shared with us on yesterday. And so our first winner is Miss Philandra Mac Epps. Congratulations, Miss Philandra Mac Epps. And our second winner is Miss Gabrielle Gardner. Miss Gabrielle Gardner. Congratulations. Those Visa gift cards, you will receive them electronically in the mail. And now we're going to tag Yolanda to thank our sponsors.
Okay, again, thank you all, everyone, all the speakers tonight, the audience for the engagement. And now we want to thank the sponsors for, again, making this possible and providing gift cards for us. We want to thank Suburban Houston Fort Bend Alumni Chapter of Delta Sigma Theta Sorority Incorporated. We want to thank the Houston, Texas Alumni Chapter of Kappa Alpha Psi Fraternity Incorporated. We want to thank the Dallas Alumni Chapter of Delta Sigma Theta Incorporated, and also thanking the East Harris Chambers Liberty County Chapter of Delta Sigma Theta Sorority Incorporated. And our 2 biggest sponsors, again, that is making all of this possible, giving us the go-ahead to continue advocating for the students, is DTech Tag, which is, again, stands for the Delta Teacher Efficacy Campaign and Teachers Advocating for Great Change. And then DREF, which stands for Delta Research and Educational Foundation. Again, thank you all to all the sponsors for assisting us. And now we want to tag Keisha.
All right. Thank you, Yolanda. Thanks again. All right, guys, before we get ready to close out and I bring the Texas PAX team back in, well, you know what? I'm going to bring them back in while I'm closing us out because I just feel comfortable with them in here with me. So how about that? Let me get everybody. There we go. All right. So before we close out, we hope you all are missing somebody. Oh, no. No, I'm not. Okay. Before we close out, we hope you all have enjoyed the educational symposium. It's not over, though. It's not over, you guys. It is not over. Tomorrow night, Thursday night, we have the one, the only, the awesome, the dynamic, the magnificent Reverend Dr. Frederick Douglass Haynes III. He is going to be here talking to us about social justice and education. Y'all, let me tell you, tag your friends, share this with your friends, let them know that we will be in the building tomorrow night. He's going to close this symposium out, but honey, hey, you're going to be blessed because of it. I already know. So we are inviting you to invite others. You all come back in tomorrow night. We're going to enjoy ourselves. And thank you all for joining us tonight. Have a good evening. Good night, everyone.
We got to fight against them, but we need numbers. We need to show up at school board meetings. We need to show up at county commissioner meetings. We need to have someone on the agenda to talk and know what they're talking about to advocate.